That day, my son stood outside his grandmother's door, holding a birthday gift, only to have the door slammed shut in his face. "This party isn't for you," they said. And that was just the beginning of much worse to come. The coffee machine in the corner of the office hummed softly, blending with a low chatter of a few coworkers. The scent of freshly roasted coffee beans wafted through the cracked door, but I no longer found the aroma comforting like usual. My fingers typed out words on the keyboard, but my eyes just stared blankly at the white screen, not really reading what I was writing. My phone buzzed quietly beside me. A message popped up. "Ethan. Mom, they said I can't come in." I blinked, thinking I must have misread. The short sentence felt like it plunged straight into a deep emptiness in my chest. I picked up the phone immediately without thinking. A dial tone played for a moment before Ethan's voice came through. I heard the wind and his breath, uneven but held back. "Where are you?" I asked. "In front of Grandma's house." That image flashed clearly in my mind. Ethan standing in front of the white-painted wooden door, wearing the shirt I had carefully ironed for him last night, holding a birthday gift wrapped in pale blue paper. Inside was the picture frame he had chosen carefully for a whole week, wanting to give to Grandma. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice calm. "Why?" A long silence followed. Then Ethan spoke slowly, as if repeating every word he had just heard. "Aunt Marie said it's a private dinner. Only invited guests are allowed." I felt like the air around me had been sucked out. Only the vague noises of the room and my heavy heartbeat remained. I asked again, trying to keep my tone even. "Did Grandma say anything?" She smiled, then closed the door. That was all. No explanation, no "let me check," no gesture inviting him inside. On the other end of the line, I heard Ethan's small footsteps retreating down the steps. In my mind's eye, I saw the warm yellow light spilling out from the window, reflecting on the gift box still clutched tightly in his hand, unopened. Inside that house were laughter, clinking forks on plates, birthday cheers, and outside stood my son alone. I looked at the clock. The second hand moved so slowly it felt frozen. My throat was dry. I took a deep breath and spoke slowly. "All right, come home." I placed the phone face down on the desk. I looked up. The computer screen was still bright, but every letter had turned into meaningless white space. My hand clenched gently, not out of immediate anger, but because an emptiness, a coldness, was creeping through every bone. I imagined Ethan riding his bike home, the wind blowing through his shirt sleeves, his small hands gripping the handlebars tight. The gift box swayed lightly in the basket, a quiet reminder that tonight he had stood outside his grandmother's door and had been turned away. Sitting alone in the quiet room, the soft yellow light casting shadows on the worn wooden table, I began to recall the years gone by. My family always had a golden child. That was my sister Marie. Someone for whom everything seemed easier. Every mistake, every stumble was wrapped in forgiveness and protection. Me? Even the slightest difference was enough to make me feel like an outsider. I studied hard, worked part-time to pay my own tuition. While my classmates slept late into the night, I stayed up, grinding through lessons and essays, trying desperately not to let myself down. Meanwhile, Marie dropped out halfway through school. Yet no one said a word instead. They threw parties celebrating even the smallest of her achievements. When I started my own small business, things seemed to change. But only on the surface. My family began calling me their mobile bank. A nickname bitter, yet full of affection. I lost count of the times I paid off my parents' credit card debts. Bills piling up they couldn't handle. I was the one who stepped up. Then there was the time my father got sick, hospital bills mounting. I paid everything without hesitation. And, most importantly, for 6 years, I have been paying the rent on the luxury apartment my parents live in. The apartment is under my name, a place they come and go freely, as if it were theirs, while I work hard, shouldering all the costs. But for all that I did, I received cutting words. My mother once said to me, with contempt dripping in her voice, "You're too serious. No wonder no one invites you anywhere." I stayed silent, no reply. Marie, meanwhile, would sneer and say, "Loosen up, Dr. Money." Another nickname, perhaps even sharper than the last. I remember sitting alone, hearing the laughter behind my back, the whispered words. "That girl's like, she's always preparing for college." I'm not one to make a scene, but all I ever wanted was acknowledgement. Not to steal the spotlight, just to be recognized. But in this family, that recognition was never meant for me. I once tried telling my mother, "I need love. I need to be valued too." But I was met with cold eyes, as if I were demanding something unacceptable. So I learned to stand on my own, to pay for my own life. And because of that, when I watch my son Ethan grow up, I want a different future for him, one where he won't be overshadowed like I was. But today, seeing him shut out and turned away at Grandma's house, I know those old wounds have never healed. The door softly closed behind Ethan, leaving a large emptiness in the small room. He stepped inside slowly, carrying an invisible burden only he could feel. In his hands, the gift box remained untouched, its wrapping paper shiny and flawless, without a single crease or tear. He placed the box on the table and sat down quietly, not uttering a word, his gaze lost in the void. I looked at him, trying to guess the thoughts and feelings enveloping my little boy. His eyes tried to hold a calm facade but couldn't hide the traces of damp redness, silent tears not yet shed out loud, but enough to make my heart tighten. "Mom, I didn't know birthdays needed tickets." Ethan's voice came out softly, filled with surprise mixed with a deep sadness, as if he had just uncovered a bitter truth about the grown-up world. I sighed, words stuck in my throat, trying to keep my tone steady so as not to deepen his pain. "Did you try to give Grandma the gift?" I asked gently, but with deep concern. Ethan nodded quietly, his voice dropping. "I did, Mom. She just said, maybe later." Then Aunt Marie pulled her inside and closed the door. Each word felt like a sharp knife piercing straight through my heart, but I fought to keep my emotions in check. The room suddenly felt heavy and hard to breathe in. I saw my son trying to stay strong, but his red-rimmed eyes silently shed tiny tears, no loud sobs, but enough to make my chest ache. I stepped closer, wrapped my arms tightly around him, feeling his trembling inside. Ethan didn't hesitate to lean into me, as if finding a safe harbor in the middle of the storm he had just endured. "Sweetheart," I whispered, voice full of love and tenderness, "this is not your fault. Not even a little bit. I want you to remember that clearly." I gazed deep into his eyes, the windows of his pain, but also his strength to move through hard days ahead. In that moment, the whole world seemed silent. Only our steady breathing and the soft ticking of the clock on the wall reminded us that life goes on, no matter how bitter the hurt. I held his hand firmly, vowing not to let these wounds dim the light inside him. I will be the strongest shoulder he can lean on, no matter how many storms rage outside. 3 months ago, when everything still seemed manageable, I received a call from Marie, my sister. Her voice carried an unmistakable hint of discomfort, something I immediately sensed beneath her words. "Kate," she said, her tone mixed with both pleading and pressure, "my daughter just got accepted to a prestigious art camp in Italy." I smiled inwardly, thinking of the little girl clutching her paintbrushes, eyes shining brightly as she unleashed her creativity. I understood she needed an opportunity to step out into the world, to grow, to be seen. But I also remembered my own exhausting months. The months I carried the burden of paying my parents' luxury apartment rent, the utilities bills, every little penny I painstakingly saved. $18,000, I said calmly, though my heart felt heavy. Are you sure you need help? Ethan has never had privileges like that. Silence. I heard a sigh on the other end, then a cold, bitter laugh that sent chills down my spine. Must be nice to be rich and selfish at the same time. I couldn't respond. That sentence stabbed deep, not just an attack on my refusal to help, but a judgment on who I was, on everything I was trying to hold together to keep the family afloat. A week later, at the family dinner table, I heard my mother say with an almost warning tone, half caution, half advice, "Don't hold Marie back just because you're jealous." Those words echoed in the tense air, choking me. I remembered every syllable, and now, whenever I think of them, a cold shiver runs down my spine. That sentence forced me to reconsider the whole story, not just the refusal to provide help, but how my family measured my worth by what I could give and by what I could not. Today, as I watch Ethan stand outside Grandma's door, rejected simply because he wasn't invited, I realize that sentence was not merely a warning, it was a verdict against me, against my son. Don't hold Marie back because of jealousy. But I'm not jealous. I never have been. I only long for fairness, for myself, for my son. I looked deep into my boy's eyes reflecting disappointment and heartbreak, but also the resilience of a young soul trying to make sense of a complicated, sometimes cruel adult world. I have asked myself countless times, am I being too harsh? Am I holding on to some old grudges? But the answer is clear. It's not that I'm harsh. It's that they never truly accepted me. And now they do not accept my son either. The wounds from the past have never healed. Instead, they deepen with every passing moment, seeping into the smallest fragments of my life. I know that to protect Ethan, I must be stronger than ever, not just as his mother, but as his warrior, standing up against every injustice. That night, while the world outside slowly slipped into sleep, I sat alone in my small room, the soft yellow light casting shadows across the worn wooden table. Before me lay stacks of bank statements, page after page, accumulating like an undeniable archive of the money I had sent, paying the luxury apartment rent for my parents over the past 6 years. Each number, each line tightened my chest. It wasn't just money, it was every drop of sweat, every headache, every silent sacrifice I had never voiced to anyone. In my mind echoed a small yet heavy thought. They didn't just shut you out, Ethan. They sent me a message too. That message was cold, sharp like a blade cutting through my heart. It was no longer just the pain of my son, but a warning, a challenge directed at me, the mother, the woman who had supported this family with her own strength. I could no longer stay silent. A rising anger filled me, not blind rage, but the calm certainty of one who has endured enough. The next morning, I walked into the lawyer's office, heart pounding but mind clearer than ever. I laid out the facts. I am the tenant on the lease, the one who pays, and I demanded the contract be terminated immediately. The lawyer looked at me with not just sympathy, but respect for my resolve. "You're doing the right thing," he said softly but firmly. "They have no right to stay if you don't agree." I nodded, feeling a strength I'd never known, a strength of liberation. A part of me that had long been imprisoned by hope for a harmonious family was now shattered, making way for freedom and determination to protect myself and those I love most. That afternoon, I drove to my parents' apartment. My hand held a small envelope, my mind heavy with mixed thoughts and emotions. I stood at the door, carefully placed the envelope on the doorstep, knocked gently, and stepped back a few paces. Soon after, my mother appeared, her face pale, eyes wide with shock and anger. She saw the envelope and shouted furiously, "You're kicking us out? Over a misunderstanding." I met her gaze steadily, my voice even and clear. "You turned my son away. Now it's my turn." Her eyes flared with rage, but deep inside I knew she understood the gravity of the situation. This was no longer petty arguments or fleeting resentments. It was the final fracture of a family relationship I had once desperately tried to hold together. In that moment, I felt the ending, painful but necessary to open a new chapter for us all. I turned and walked away, lighter than I'd ever felt before. I stood up, not out of blind anger, but out of love strong enough to protect my son from needless harm. And in that moment, I knew I was not alone. After years of silent endurance and sacrifice, my parents finally had to leave the luxury apartment that I had quietly paid the rent for over 6 years. That apartment, once a home that seemed irreplaceable, now became a distant memory. They moved into a smaller, simpler apartment, a drastic change for people used to comfort and convenience. Marie, my sister, took on the role of caretaker during those difficult times. But the suffocating atmosphere, the endless arguments and simmering tensions between the three of them made her endure only 2 short weeks before she too kicked them out, leaving behind an empty, cold, and tense home. Rumors quickly spread throughout the family, whispers filled with bitterness. She abandoned her parents. She's no longer their child. It's hard to believe someone could act like that. I knew those words would come, but I refused to let the gossip shake my resolve. I sent proof every payment receipt, every transfer for the apartment rent, along with the lease termination notice, to every family member and relative. I didn't seek explanations or justifications, only for them to see the undeniable truth. After that, everything was swallowed by a heavy silence, an unspoken acknowledgement that I had done the right thing. One evening, Ethan and I walked into a small, cozy restaurant tucked away on a quiet street. The place wasn't fancy or flashy, but it glowed with warm yellow light, soft chatter, and above all, the peace that my son and I had sought for so long. We ordered familiar dishes, Ethan's favorites, and sat together in that simple yet comforting space. I saw a radiant smile on his face. His eyes sparkled with genuine joy and happiness, a sight I had longed for all these years. "You know, Mom," Ethan said in a clear, excited voice like a child receiving a great gift, "this is the best birthday dinner I've ever had." I smiled, gently resting my hand on his shoulder, feeling a warmth and calm wash over me. "Sometimes you have to lose a seat at the table to find the right one," I said softly. Those words echoed as a reminder, not just for Ethan but for myself, that sometimes it's not about holding on to everything, nor clinging to what doesn't belong to you. More importantly, it's about finding a space where you are loved, respected, and accepted for who you truly are. I made the right choice. I chose my son, chose peace for my soul, and those I love most. Now, as I watch Ethan's joyful smile beside me, I know that the wounds of the past no longer chain us. We have been freed, free to walk our own path, a path filled with light and hope. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to hit subscribe and like to support us in sharing more real, deeply emotional stories like this. Don't hesitate to leave a comment below. Tell us your thoughts or share your own story. Every voice has the power to connect and heal. Thank you for being with us on this journey. You are not alone, and your story matters just as much as ours.